in the pursuit of truth and common sense in an unbelievable world. You're listening to the Right Mind podcast with your host, Todd Showalter.
Hello, everybody. I'm Todd Showalter, and welcome to Right Mind. Today, my guest is Rico Aviles. He has his own podcast out in Springfield, Missouri. It's called the Rico Podcast, appropriately, and we're going to touch base on a lot of different things today. How you doing, Rico?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Let's go. A lot of stuff going on right now in the world. We've got a situation with the president that seems to be struggling. We have high inflation. We have high gasoline prices. Things are just a little rough here in the U.S. right now. I don't know where you stand politically, but as a whole, what do you think we're going to have to do to come to terms with all this?
It's a lot of problems, so we would have to go one by one. So what's the first thing you want to deal on?
Well, you've got a lot of stuff just seems to be building. And if you look at inflation, you look at fuel, a lot of the stuff comes down to supply and demand. I mean, why in the heck are we not opening our pipelines, specifically Keystone? People say, well, there's certain regulations and things against that. But I mean, why are we pretty much shooting ourselves in the foot, in your opinion?
When it comes to politics, I don't really know much about it.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is that if there's a supply and demand issue, then normally it falls into two parties, right? The person that needs it and the person that's demanding it. So sometimes when there's a chain and supply issue, to me, it's a matter of, well, what's the fuck is a holdup, right?
What is to hold?
What's the holdup, right?
A holdup, yeah.
That's the number one thing. The second thing is like, we can't really expect for things to go smoothly after we just completely shut down the world for a full year. There's a lot of people that are not wanting to go back to work. There's
right.
A lot of people that are opening up new businesses that aren't even considered as businesses, unfortunately. There's also a lot of people that simply miscalculated the effect that a pandemic would have. And then on top of that, if I'm not mistaken, we also have a supply issue with other countries. If I'm not mistaken, I read this morning that we have like a supply issue with metals and with aluminum and stuff like that. Well, I know for us, we had a computer, right? We ordered a computer that it took a month and a half to get because they were missing a motherboard because it's like, well, it's done in China.
Right. And you've got certain situations, though. And, I'm not, disagreeing that we, had a pandemic and, it seems to be dragging on. But, why we have barges and boats and stuff like that sitting out in the ocean that basically the ports are closed. Open the ports. I mean, let the boats in, let the barges, come in and drop off the goods. I mean, a lot of the stuff that seems to be going on seems to be self-inflicted. I mean, I'm not disagreeing that there's a lot of stuff that we have to deal with, but if I'm bleeding to death, I'm going to put a tourniquet on it and try to fix something. It just seems like we're ignoring the problem and just letting things get worse.
Then maybe the problem is that you don't need a tourniquet to stop the bleeding. Maybe we're using a tourniquet incorrectly, just to use that analogy, because that's a fun analogy.
Okay, well, explain that.
Yeah, so perfect example. A tourniquet is used to stop hemorrhaging bleeding in a lower extremity limb, right? Mm-hmm. Cut your arm off, you always want to go high because you always want to stop the bleeding from the top, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just a gunshot wound and you're using a tourniquet in a gunshot wound where you should be putting a patch, if that makes sense. And maybe the person running things is like, well, we need a tourniquet. It's like, well, it's a gunshot wound and it's a stab wound. So maybe we just need an Israeli bandage. So the problem.
But regardless, we're bleeding.
100% you're bleeding. Right. Yeah, you're fucking
right.
bleeding. You have to stop the bleeding. And the problem is that it's an interesting time to be alive because we're about to see in the next year and a half what it's really all about.
What do you mean by that?
Well, because, everything's through a cycle, right? Everything is through a cycle when it comes to politics, when it comes to business and everything. And normally, in my experience as a business owner, whenever election season starts to creep around the corner, things start to magically happen. Like doors start to magically open. Bleeding magically stops. Tourniquets apparently can fix erections, and crazy things start to happen in the sense of like every time that we're close to a campaign or close to an election, people all of a sudden change their tune in a lot of things. And a lot of times, from what I've seen coming from Puerto Rico, when it's election season, a lot of times people will put things in the back burner just to put pressure on on other parties or on other people. And then come election season, things get magically fixed, and then the blame doesn't get shifted as much.
Yeah, but don't you think we're getting played? I mean, if that's a situation, if it's that easy, and basically we got to wait until election season for them to stop their childish behavior and get things done. I mean, in my opinion, I'm a business owner too. I mean, I don't have time or money to be played. Okay, if this is a big game where we're playing politics and we've got to wait for the other side, to do what they, spew their bullshit so that we want to vote for them. Well, we know it's not going to happen. Half the stuff that's been promised by our current administration, and I'm not, I'm trying to, I'm not being partisan here. I'm trying to just, objectively look at what's going on.
We're having a talk, man.
Yeah, the majority of that has never transpired. I mean, we've got these grandiose, they're all promises. And you know what? A promise, it doesn't pay my electric bill. I need to know, what are we going to do? And when are we going to stop just putting up with this childish behavior? So we've got to wait until they decide they want to be reelected to try to get something done. I mean, don't you feel that we're being played?
I feel that we're always being played. You're talking to somebody who's well, that's very simple. You have to go and look for a different solution. And this is coming from someone who's worked with the government very closely, doing a variety of high sensitive things. And a lot of times things just didn't happen because of politics. So we're always being played. That's nothing new to me. No. The thing is what do we do when we're getting played?
Well, right. Go ahead.
Because here's the thing. Here's my analogy with this is, if we are being played, which let's go down that rabbit hole. If we are being played, this ends one of two ways. This ends with people showing their hand, or this ends with a bunch of people being upset and going, okay, we're fed up with this bullshit, and now we're just going to fucking burn the world down.
Right.
Because unfortunately, what we have in our society right now is everybody's in this survival mode, right? Like a lot of people are in survival mode. I have a lot of friends that when they come over, man, I feed them, because sometimes they don't know where their next meal is going to come from.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's shortages. Chicken's fucking $39 a 10-pound bag, man.
No, I know, it's ridiculous. It's and hamburger. My God, you might as well, be buying.
I might as well go kill a cow, bro.
Exactly. I mean, cheaper. What kind of an America is that? I mean, and it's a joke. And if that's being played, I'm tired of playing the game.
So then that's the thing. And then the next problem is okay, well, what can we do to affect change? And unfortunately for me, it's just a matter of helping those around me. That's how I personally, that's how, Rico deals with change, is I help the people around me, because when we're talking about changing things at a grand scale, man, I don't have all the answers. So what I can do is within the means that I have is try to help the people around me, because it's not pretty what's going on. There's
okay, and you hit on a good point. That's a very good point, Rico. Okay, because I don't know where you stand politically. You don't know where I stand politically, but that really doesn't matter, because you want to help people. I personally want to help people. I think everybody wants to help each other. But that comes to my other problem that we have right now. We have this mass media that thrives on diversity and division, because if they can separate us, then they've got a huge news story. They want your liberals against the conservatives. They want the blacks against the whites. They want this against this, because they're trying to make it some type of reality TV show that's going to divide us all. And then that is what sells. So that's another way that we're being played. Why can't, and again, that's why the show, for one reason or not, is called Right Mind. Why can't we all use our right minds, put all that diversity aside, realize we're being played like a couple of pawns in a chess match, and just come together, put these children in their place, and get our job done and work together?
Because at the end of the day, a lot of times money is what makes the world go round, number one. And number two, The problem that we also have is a problem of trustworthiness. Nobody wants to trust anybody, even if you have. This is a good example right here. People will always question if you. People will never question when you say that they don't like you. Like if I told you right now that I don't like you, would you believe me?
Well, you know what? I don't know. We've never met. I mean, this is the
But
first
the
time
thing
you and I-
is but the thing is if I said, Todd, I don't fucking like you, you'd probably be like, all right, cool, whatever, and you take it for what it is.
right. Okay.
Now,
Sure.
if I said, man, Todd, I like you, and I just met you, you'd be like, this motherfucker has something in his back pocket, or something is up, something's weird. What do this person wants? And unfortunately, that goes back to the media thing. Is what sells is a lot of suffering. And the problem is when you sell a bunch of suffering, like you said, it's for one of two reasons. It's either a distraction or to make you realize. But the thing is like, I realize there's a lot of suffering. I'm out in the community. I don't need to watch news to see that there's an active shooter. There's someone that has a fucking issue every 10 minutes that wants to take an issue out of hand.
Mhm.
I don't need to watch the news to know that people don't agree with a comedian and they want to slap him in the face because they think it's what sells. I don't need to see the news to know that there's racial problems or racial tensions. I think the biggest problem is that we over sensationalize a lot the news, and we take it for, well, not everyone. You seem like an intelligent person.
Well,
A
I
lot of
try.
people a lot of people take the news as gospel, and a lot of times is that there's agendas. And when people have agendas, they tend to go in whatever direction that agenda is. So then the problem becomes, like I said earlier, is like, what's the agenda and what's the end goal? Is the end goal to hold on to things, or is the end goal to just simply, there's something else that we don't know about? Because to me, when I see an issue like this, as big as it is with the supply, for example, it's like, okay, well, what's the issue? Well, we can't get the supplies in. Well, why? It
Right.
doesn't matter what variable you insert. Well, it's because of immigration. Well, it's because of the cartel. Well, it's because of fentanyl. Well, it's because of insert whatever variable. Well, that's an easy thing to solve. If it's a
Sure it
drug
is.
problem, you chest it. If it's a problem of spies, or insert whatever variable you want, then we have an organization fix it. What I've always been curious about this situation is why. Because no matter what the why is, we have a solution. We have enough 3-letter fucking agencies that do, they do a million different things, and then they all end up trying to chew off each other.
Well, when you
So-
say why, you mean why they're actually doing the things that they're doing? I've got an idea of
No,
why.
no. Is why isn't it fixed? I don't care what the
Oh,
problem is.
Well,
What
I don't
care
think they
about
want
is-
to fix it. I don't think
Yeah.
they want to fix it.
So
No,
then that
it's
brings me
like
to
this
my last
pandemic.
point.
It's like this pandemic. They don't want. Do you think seriously, Rico? I mean,
Mhm.
they don't want this to end. I mean, when this whole thing went down and it's escalated to the size that it has, and they have this control. Once you have control over someone,
One
You-
second.
you-
Let me get my water because my throat's.
yeah,
my
there
throat's
is. That's
really
another
dry.
problem we have here is we're in the middle of a pollen season and it's hard to breathe. What I was saying though is, once someone has control, all right, they're not going to give up that control. They're not going to say, well, it looks like things are, managed well now. I'm just going to give up that control. No, they're going to keep it. All right. And in most cases, once they gain control, they want more control. Okay. So that's not going to go away. Why going back to your why? I don't think they want to fix it, because as long as there's a problem, as long as there's fear, and let's not forget about the fear factor, because as long as they can scare people, then you have control. All right. And when you complimented me on my intelligence, I appreciate it. And I say that back to you. You seem like a very intelligent guy. When are people going to wake up and realize this fear that is being shoved down our throat is for one reason, and that is for control, so that they can put more mandates out, so they can do more things to control us? When are people going to wake up, and what is it going to take to do that?
That really depends on the person.
Well,
It just depends on the person, because here's the thing: is you can use fear to manipulate things, but the thing is like we talked earlier, like you need mass mass marketing to market fear, right?
Which
So
they have. They have the mass media, which
100%, 100%, left, right, up, down, north,
it doesn't
east,
matter.
southwest.
It doesn't matter.
Everybody manipulates something.
Exactly.
It goes back to what I said is what's the agenda? And unfortunately, people can try to hold on to fucking with somebody, because I'll say it like that. It's not even fear. It's you're fucking with somebody's livelihood. And some people might disagree. Some people might say, well, what about all the people that have died and all this? And it's like, yeah, that's a thing. But at the same time, at some point, people have to sit down and really analyze, well, what is it that I want to do? Because fear is an individual thing, right? What I fear and what you fear are two very different things.
Well, do you have a family? Do you have a family?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you obviously, with the family, you fear for their safety, you fear for their well-being. Okay. And I mean, so I have a family also. So, I mean, I'm not going to put them in a situation where they may be harmed. And right now, I see not only my family, but strangers being put in situations where they have the potential to be harmed. And I don't mean that in a physical or medical way or anything, or health way. Rather, I look at different measures that are being taken. And you can look at things throughout history, different methods that are used for control. And I don't think people understand what's going on. Right now, we have skyrocketing food prices, as you mentioned, along with shortages. We have high gas prices that people can't afford to drive their cars, which means they're going to end up staying at home and not working. We had a brief conversation a few weeks ago. I heard that they want to shorten the work week to 4 work days, possibly. And when you shorten productivity, that collapses capitalism. Okay. So you see a lot of different things that are being put into place right now that people just don't seem to be aware of, or if they are aware of it, they just don't care. I think you have a faction of people that like being taken care of, but that destroys capitalism in the American way, this whole country, how it was founded. I mean, you grew up in Puerto Rico?
Oh yeah, I was born, raised, and educated. Joined the Army when I was.
I mean, how are things different? How are things different? Did you expect where you are now in Springfield, Missouri, in 2022? Did you expect this 10, 15 years ago? That this is going to be how it's going to be?
This is nothing. This is nothing to me, because I lived through George, and I lived through a couple hurricanes where we didn't have light or water for months.
Right, and that's a natural disaster. Would you compare this to a natural disaster?
I would compare it to a natural disaster, but what I would say is that the level of fear that each person has for whatever reason, right? It's individual, and a lot of times when we talk about fear and we talk about capitalism and stuff like that, I do disagree with one thing you said, is that shortening a work week could hurt capitalism. It could absolutely could.
Mm-hmm.
However, you can also be way more productive if you just have the right tools and you have the right procedures to do things, and you also know what you're doing.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. No, I'm not.
No.
Right.
But what I'm saying is like it could hurt capitalism. 100% it could, because shorter work weeks and all that stuff. But at the same time, it really all depends on a variety of things. To me, the food shortage and all that stuff, I've lived through this before, sure. So I've always prepped and everything like that. And, it's just a matter of being adaptable. It's like, okay, well, chicken is $40 a 10-pound bag. Cool. We're going to get chicken thighs because it's like $23 a 10-pound bag, to throw an example. It's right. That's the price. I don't know.
Right. And when you say you're used to that, was that because in the past that was due to natural disasters, hurricanes, and things like that? Those are things that were out of your control, correct?
Well, I also went to war, so. And
you went to war. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, to me, it's like one of those things that it's like, you learn how to live and be happy with very little, but at the same time, you also appreciate when you have more. And one of the problems that I think we have a lot in the world is that people always want more than what they can handle, and they don't understand that looking at it from like a religious perspective, for example, there's an old saying that says when God takes something from you, it's because he's making room for something more. I think God's taking a lot right now if we want to go down that route.
Well, okay, go on that, because I'm very spiritual. I mean,
I'm not.
Well, I am. We could talk about that all day. I'm
not. I'm just using the example of like, it seems like there's a lot of problems that have passed down from generation to generation that no one addressed. And then there's some other problems that were addressed.
Like when you say problems, what kind
immigration, for example, because I've worked immigration cases myself. I've worked human trafficking cases. And that's just something that for the longest time people didn't want to address, because when you would talk about trafficking, people correlated it with immigration and no one wanted to talk about it because God forbid Paco comes over here illegally to take your job or whatever funny reason you can find. But the reality is that a lot of these things are connected. If you stop everyone from coming over, then the problem isn't the people that are coming over. The problem is a dual problem. Is either you have some information that I don't know about, which had happened because I remember working immigration cases when you remember years ago when they were dumping the kids over the fence.
Yeah, sure. Right. Yeah, they were throwing them over. Right. Yeah.
So the reason that was happening was because what was happening is they were sending the kids over and they were telling the kids to memorize addresses so they could go to where their parents were. And what ended up happening was the administration at that time said, well, we can't let these kids leave because we're going to have a bunch of kids that are going to go stray. And then the cartel knew where the kids were because they knew the addresses and they picked them up. And this is something that happened.
Right. All right.
So that's a two-part problem, right? Number one, we're letting people come into the country,
right,
that didn't have the right paperwork, and because they were kids, we were doing things or whatever reason. And number two, the other problem was the problem that not a lot of people saw was that you had an outside source, an outside problem, we'll call it, that was doing harm to them. A lot of times that's how I look at problems is, okay, well, if this is happening, then there has to be a problem over here that I don't know about.
Mm-hmm. Well, smoke and mirrors.
There you go. You get it.
That's just it. It's all about distraction.
So then right now I'm trying to look for the smoke and mirrors. And again, I'm not that well educated on the verse, but it's like, well, what's the issue? What's the problem with, and again, inflation and all that stuff. It's an autocorrection from a lot of stuff that's happened and the printing of money and a bunch of other shit. Yeah, what I'm waiting for is the crash.
Well, and that's just it. And I think not only it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I don't think any of this stuff is a surprise anymore. I personally think all this is planned. At least 99% of it's planned, because there's just too many things that are in place right now that just don't add up. And like you said earlier, we both said smoke and mirrors, distraction. A lot of stuff's going on. I mean, you look at the situation even with the Supreme Court right now with Roe versus Wade, where that was pulled out of the sky, a couple of weeks ago, where it could have been, somebody said the moon landing was faked. It didn't matter.
Can you explain that to me? Because I haven't.
Yeah. Well, basically absolutely what happened was.
Thank you.
Yeah, what happened, I mean, for those of us that haven't been following it, I mean, basically we have all these dilemmas, all these horrible problems going on that we just touch base on. We have a president that's not quite there. We have high skyrocketing prices. We've got an issue of funding money to the Ukraine. And basically the approval rating, not basically, truthfully, we have the approval rating of the United States president is lower that you could crawl under a snake with it. It's so low. So, I mean, what do you do in a situation like that where everybody's screaming? Well, you distract from it. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all of a sudden we have a Supreme Court leak, the first time in history, as far as I know.
That a leak of the Supreme, what was leaked?
A leak of a Supreme Court where the brief, where they're thinking of possibly changing Roe versus Wade.
A Supreme Court leak for
you haven't heard about this? Oh my God!
I've been following some other stuff in I have some friends that are in Spain and some friends that are in Puerto Rico and in
Colombia.
No,
Rico, this is the big news. We got all the people screaming in the streets that we're not going to get to have abortion again, which it has nothing to do with not having abortion. Basically, it was a big bullshit distraction so that everybody would get up in arms and scream and the media would have something to focus on. And meanwhile, we still have all these problems going on. We have skyrocketing prices. We have inflation. We don't have baby food anymore. We have all kinds of stuff that are going down that we're not going to look at because now we've distracted from it because all of a sudden we're going to repeal Roe versus Wade that was accidentally leaked. No, I mean, you and I aren't that.
Yeah, no, the Supreme Court.
No, but
especially in a landmark case, like you
right
for you to
leak. It was oops. I mean, this has never happened before. Okay, but all of a sudden it did. All right. So now we have all these major distractions, protests, people mad. This is a highlight of the news, everything going on. And we're not looking at all the other things. At least I'm looking at it because I understand what it is. It's a giant distraction to take us away from everything else going on. All right. But all this other stuff is still going on. And you and I still can't afford to fill our cars up with gas. And we still can't afford that chicken that you were talking about. We got babies that don't have baby food. All right. And we have all these other things that are happening. And we have a president that really, I'm sorry, he's just, nothing against him personally. If somebody has dementia, they're senile, whatnot, God love them. Okay. But they shouldn't be the leader of the free world. Okay.
I mean, I don't think you should apologize for something that's pretty
obvious,
noticeable. I wouldn't say obvious because if you don't follow, I think obviously there are some issues, or maybe he just needs a little more testosterone. Or
what he needs is a blanket and a chair in a nursing home, I'm afraid. And I'm sorry, that's what it is. All right, that is not saying, oh, you're conservative or you're this or you're that.
No, you shouldn't apologize for that.
It's an funny observation of an old man with early stages of dementia that we have propped up in front of a teleprompter doing his best to read words that he doesn't have the time to even know that he's reading. Okay, put an anchor man out there. Give me Will Ferrell or something like that. Some
Todd,
guy.
What if Todd?
Yes.
What if Ashton Kutcher? What if Ashton Kutcher is behind all this, and this is how he's going to announce a new season of Punk'd?
At this point, Rico, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised.
Look back at this.
They got us. And they're all laughing.
Ashton, you got me.
Oh, that's exactly what it is.
No, it's crazy. It's just
it's totally crazy. And it's like I said before, we're being played. We are being played. And people sit in front of their televisions because they couldn't leave their house for 2 years. Okay. So all they can do is watch television, right?
Yeah, I don't know about that whole not leaving the house because I did comedy during COVID.
Oh, yeah, me too. I left all the time. No,
yeah,
I left. That's like when they said, we can finally leave the house. What do you mean? I've been out of the house for the last 2 years. I knew this was all stupid.
Yeah, I don't know where all that came from. Like, I know restaurants were like pretty restricted for a while.
Oh, they were totally restricted. Here in St. Louis. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, St. Louis was rough because the Funny Bone and all that other stuff over there, they were closed for the longest time, and it was rough to do comedy.
Okay. Well, we've got 2 minutes, unfortunately. I'm going to quit bitching here, and I'm going to let you talk about your comedy. I'm going to let you talk about where we can learn more about your show, and let's just lighten the mood here a little bit, Rico.
Oh, dude, no, this is fun. I didn't know it was 30 minutes. I'm so sorry.
Didn't.
Steve did not tell me it was 30 minutes, so I'm gonna go choke Steve.
Steve is our publicist, and like he, even I got the signal here that we're running out of time, but he wanted us to have a cooking show and show how to make omelets, and I said no, Rick and I are going to talk about something substantive.
He tries to tell me sometimes what not to do.
I know. I don't listen to him.
Yeah, like when he told me, I had a guest on my podcast, the Rico podcast, which you can find on iHeart, and this person is a very well-known fact that this person had sex with Freddie Mercury.
Had sex with
Freddie Mercury. This was this is legit.
Okay.
And right. I told Steve, I said, well, I have a question for him and I know what I'm going to ask him. Steve's like, what's the question? Because we normally run, questions and stuff like that to get, hey, what's this person know,
Sure.
You know how it is.
Oh yeah.
And I said, well, I'm going to ask him how big was Freddie Mercury's cock?
Oh, yeah. Well,
and Steve was like, you're not going to do that. So, well, 5 minutes into the show, I did. And
right.
It was great. So my show is pretty much about just people talking.
Okay. And it's called The Rico Show?
Called The Rico Podcast.
The Rico Podcast. Okay. We're going to put that on the screen. Okay. Yeah.
And
also,
and my co-host, Eric.
And who's your co-host?
Eric McElroy, a good friend of mine and a retired, also a retiree from the military. He retired from the Navy after doing 20.
Okay. That's awesome, man. Good.
Yeah.
I mean, God bless you for serving the country. I appreciate it. Well, we all appreciate that. We all do. Keep us safe. I mean, you may have to go back, Rico.
I'm down.
I hope not.
I'm fucking down 100%.
Oh, you're down, man. Okay. Well, it's like me. I grew the mullet because I could be like Rambo. I always need the headband.
I don't know. You don't.
Well, okay, you don't have to be. We could be. That could be our shtick. Mullet and not so much mullet guy.
That's actually a thing in military units where they all get the same haircut and the same mustache.
There you go. And then they all become members of the Village People, who people won't know who that is either because I'm dating the whole show. But anyway, you do comedy. You said you did the Funny Bone. I just did the Funny Bone a while back myself. How long have you been doing that?
March was 3 years.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
3 years. Yeah, I've opened up for pretty cool people, and I have a lot of friends who are comedians too that do very well on their own.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, let's go ahead and try this. And for 6 months, I didn't get a laugh. And then the first time I got a laugh, I was like, all right, cool.
You're hooked. You're hooked.
Yeah. Well, it's fun to make people smile, man.
Especially these days. I think comedians are the only thing holding people together at this point.
I agree 1,000% with that statement.
Yeah.
I agree 1,000%. And I never realized how impactful comedians were in my life until I started the podcast. Because like one of the things we used to do when we got done with missions was we'd watch Tommy Chong, Cheech and Chong, and we'd watch Dane Cook Vicious Circle.
Oh yeah, so great stuff.
You never realize until you start, man.
Well, do you have now along with your podcast? Do you have a website or different places where we can get a schedule of where people can see you?
Man, I keep it really, really simple with my comedy because I'm so young. A lot of people don't really want to come see me. But I do a show.
I'll come see you, Rico. Just let me know where you're at. Sure.
You're not that far. We have a show at a Great Stone Coffee at Osage Beach this Friday. And we do 2 shows a month there. And they've been doing pretty good. The last few shows we've had to turn people down at the door, unfortunately, because we just don't have the capacity. Mm-hmm. But Great Stone, it'll be this Friday at 8. And then normally you can catch me. I go all over. I don't really post where I'm going. I like to just show up.
Sure. Right. I do that too. I do that at parties. I'm not invited to. I just show up, weddings, funerals. I just show up.
Who are you? I'm the third
who's this guy?
Removed.
Yeah, I'm the entertainment. I'm the band.
I'm the band.
Yeah. From the 90s too. You can tell by the hair. Well, hey man, we're out of time. Any last words before we cut out of here? You've been great. And I'm glad that we were able to escape some of the lighter stuff and get into the heart and the meat of what's going on in the world today. Final words, buddy?
Man, just check on your neighbors and just be nice to each other.
Yeah, I agree, man.
That's the biggest thing.
And that's what we have to do
to each other.
It doesn't matter what side of the fence or what side of the team we're on. We're all in the same game here. And so it doesn't
matter.
Side
of the fence. I like that.
Well, side of the fence, what bench you're on. I don't know. Enough of the analogies. I'm out of time. Thank you so much, Richard, for joining me today, man.
I appreciate it, man.
All right. Okay. Well, and also along with Richard, I would like to thank you if you've been watching or you've been listening. I'm Todd Showalter, and this is Right Mind. And remember, if you don't have a right mind, you don't have a mind at all. Till next time. Bye-bye.
This has been the Right Mind Podcast with Todd Showalter.